Welcome back to the weekend update with Gentry and Kevin. We have some fantastic stories for you today. I'm really excited to get in. Well, not really excited because it's a lot of like really weird stuff. That's probably one of the biggest problems I think with covering conservative news. Anyway, we got some really important stories for you today because New York City is being retarded. So is the RNC, and people are also being retarded about Taylor Swift. So those are the stories that we're going to cover today. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Of course, and everybody, don't forget as you're watching, don't be like New York City or anybody else we're talking about today. No, you should like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, and share it with your friends because if you don't, you're retarded. So let's get on into it.
Let's get into it. So the first story that I want to cover here is New York City. They are being extra retarded and not deporting these illegal immigrants. So let me pop this up here.
Not only are they not deporting them, that's the thing though, it's not just that they're not deporting them. They're also like encouraging more of them to come and offering incentives for people to just not be legal in this country.
I mean, it's really weird. Let's watch this clip. I think it's about a minute long.
Just into Fox News now, NYPD making 2 more arrests, illegal immigrants, and that attack on officers. Those suspects also allegedly stole an officer's cell phone. Well, that'll help them track you down. So a 5th illegal immigrant accused of attacking 2 New York City police officers over the weekend showed no remorse or regret. He was seen, as you can see, giving his 2 middle fingers to the cameras moments after being released without bail. Florida Senator Marco Rubio wrote, "Message to America from one of the illegal immigrants who assaulted NYPD officers, walked free with no bail, and heads back to a shelter funded by taxpayers." So far, police have shared 4 mugshots of the now 7 people arrested in connection with the brutal beatings in Times Square.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so there's a few things to break down with this. And so when we discuss this kind of story, because there's other things to talk about when it comes, because we have immigration being part of it. You have the illegal immigration. And then you have crime in and of itself. And they also are obviously bridged. But if we start off with the immigration one, like I said, not only are they not punishing these illegal immigrants who not only break our laws from coming into this country illegally, but then they also assault police officers, which in and of itself, assaulting anybody is a crime. Now they are literally assaulting those that are supposed to be stopping, preventing, and punishing crime. But now they're also encouraging more of these people to come. According out of the New York Post, I think you posted about this one too. New York City launches $53 million program to hand out prepaid credit cards to migrant families. Mayor Eric Adams' administration will soon start handing out prepaid credit cards to migrant families being put up in Big Apple hotels. The $53 million pilot program, run by a New Jersey company, Mobility Capital Finance, will provide asylum seekers arriving at the Roosevelt Hotel with the city cash to help them buy food, according to city records. It'll start by giving a group of 500 migrant families in short-term hotel stays and will replace the current food service offered there, according to City Hall. So these cards can be used on bodegas, grocery stores, supermarkets, convenience stores, and migrants must sign an affidavit swearing they will only spend the funds on food and baby supplies or they will be kicked out of the program.
Yeah, but that's not going to get enforced. I pinned a comment right here. Ryan Maxshow says, "Nothing says welcome to America than the double bird." Here's what I do want to point out, though. This method of releasing criminals, it doesn't matter if you're illegal or not. Criminals without bail is not a new concept in these blue cities. There's a fantastic documentary called Seattle is Dying, and it essentially documents all of these people, all of these homeless people who are strung out on drugs. They're like a menace to society, but they get arrested, and then the prosecutors don't do anything. and they just get let out, and they're like repeat offenders, and it's not great stuff. It's arson, it's assault, it's rape, it's a ton of these things. And so this concept isn't new. It's just astonishing that we're doing this to illegal aliens now. And then they're deciding to spend $50 million on this program to keep them here. Like, okay, so
not just keep them here, but here's the problem with that is that now what'll happen is when you have a news story, like when you read it, it's only 500 families, which I don't want to reduce the idiocy of it, but it says it's only about 500. It's not, and we have millions and millions and millions of illegal immigrants currently sitting in this country. No idea who they are, no registration, no visas, nothing. And so, but you'll have people in Mexico, or like not even just like Mexicans. I just mean people that are on our southern border. Because like we've seen that there's people of many different descents coming across our southern border, but you'll have them and they'll be like, man, I can go to America, and they'll see one news story and it'll be literally illegal immigrants assaulting police officers, getting let out of jail. I can go to America. I can do that. I could rob a liquor store. I could do anything. I'll be fine. And while I'm doing all that, I can get put up in a beautiful fancy hotel, which is much better than my current state. And they'll pay me to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll tell me I can only use it for food and baby supplies. But like, what's going to stop me from getting cigarettes and a bottle of vodka?
Right. But you also said that there's 500 families getting this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I just did the math real quick. That's about $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right. That they're giving these families, they're giving these immigrants $100,000 a year to live in New York City. Like, I don't think that's enough money to live in New York City, but most people earn that by having a job or running a company. And what the heck? They're giving these families $100,000 a year.
Yep.
So Eric Adams too, by the way, he's flip-flopped on this a ton. Let's go through it because I think it's really interesting. Mm-hmm. So last year he made a whole stink about how it's unsustainable and they can't do this and all this kind of stuff. And he actually sounded pretty based. He sounded pretty conservative when he was talking about this, and everyone got kind of excited about it. And then what happened is he went to DC to have a meeting with Biden. Biden stood him up, but at the same time that Biden stood him up, one of his top donors gets raided by the FBI, which is basically a sign of force saying, if you question what we're doing, we're going to destroy you. It's in some form or fashion. And since then, he has flipped. Since then, he has just like gone along with the whole charade. It's dumb. He's being retarded. We should just call the show Being Retarded with Gentry and Kevin.
Maybe exposing, like, I don't know. But no, and that's the thing is, and not only does all of this surround the idea of illegal immigration and the crisis that we obviously have on our southern border and enabling more illegal immigrants, but it also just enables the criminals. I mean, like you said, there is policy nationwide that has to do with eliminating cash bail and basically making it so that a judge would have the right, if they want to pretty much let anybody go. And sometimes the judge is bound to allow people to leave, like by law. Like they don't even have much of a say over it, whether that be rapists, murderers, child endangerers, illegal immigrants that are assaulters and batterers. Like there are dangerous people that are being let out on the streets. In Illinois, we have the Safety Act, which basically does just that. And you have police departments where in droves, police officers are quitting because their job is basically meaningless at that point. What's the point of arresting somebody if 2 days later the person is going to be able to just be out of jail? Like there's no issue. Like, and so when you have that, and then on top of that, you also, because that in and of itself is saying, hey, criminals, what you do, you're not really going to get punished for. Mm-hmm. And then you have illegal immigrants who are benefiting off that system. And so that means you'll have legal citizens who are already people that are succumbing to criminality, which will now say, well, if an illegal immigrant can get out of jail and basically get given the monopoly get out of jail free card, then I'm just going to go commit crimes because I don't even have a risk of maybe being deported one day. I'll just get out.
Right.
So there was even another thing that kind of caused a stir. this last week when it comes to the immigration thing, and I'm curious your thoughts. It became a proposal from somebody, I don't remember exactly who, but to offer a pathway to citizenship through military service. And it kind of became a very controversial idea. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm not 100% sure, but I wanted to know your thoughts.
It is the dumbest thing I have heard in forever.
Really?
Forever. Because what these people are ignoring, right? They're trying to come at it from like the empathetic position. By the way, the left has weaponized empathy because they've made it into this thing where our country is so great, even though we hate it. And so we have to give people the right to come here. But what they're missing is assimilation, right? These people don't necessarily love America. We're seeing a whole bunch of military-age men come to the country. And so essentially they could, they could come into the military, get a pathway to citizenship, which grants them a whole bunch of rights, and they're going to vote for Democrats. And the right is going to even get more radicalized. And so in the event that there is a civil war down the road, the military will be full of these illegal immigrants that don't love America, that just want free stuff there or whatever, right? I mean, it could even be like people from the Islamic caliphate, right? Like we don't know. And I don't know that there's any like stipulations on this proposal. I think it's dumb. But it's pushing Americans who love this country out of the military, and that means that they won't have the balls
I gotta fight.
stand up to. But
I think you make some decent points, and like I'm not totally disagreeing with you in total. Like I just think that there's some other things to think about because pushing people out of the military, that's false. I mean, like I'll tell you that now, just simply for the fact that our military, the people that are signing up for the military, drastically declining. Like we are not hitting the same numbers that we used to, and it's pushing people. That's why people are worried about a potential draft if somebody like Nikki Haley gets into office or Biden pushes us into World War III, is because we are not currently hitting our numbers that we were 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago in terms of military enrollment. There's not, and a lot of it has to do with the lack of pride in America. And so I'm not sure that the solution to that is illegal immigrants, but to say that would cause people to push out current military members, I don't see that. I would say, I think that there's a way
it wouldn't happen today, right? So like, let's say this law gets passed today, it wouldn't happen today, but I guarantee you in 5-10 years, that will happen. People will get pushed out.
Maybe you're not wrong. I want to because I do think you bring up some good points when it comes to the idea of we don't know who these people are. And so like, you could have people that are ISIS or whatever that get in. That's not totally wrong. I feel like there's a way to, if I trusted the government enough, and I also thought that our military was currently like strong, when we have military initiatives that are focusing on DEI and whether or not you're trans, gay or anything like that, or black, or like how many black women do we have in the military? If we didn't have a military that focused on that and focused on being strong and intimidating, I would maybe trust some level of an implementation of allowing a very, very select group of migrants that applied for it, and not just people that were already in the country. I'm thinking people that might be on the southern border or in Mexico or just even anywhere in the world go through an application system where I will serve the United States military. I will renounce my citizenship to every other country, a pledge to America. Like, I think that there could be a way in which it works out. And that's how we would get some people that were strong, committed, and go through a serious vetting process to earn their citizenship.
Okay, so what you're describing would be like a fraternity hazing where
let's do it.
Yeah. Where they're on the southern border, they get picked up in a van, they get blindfolded, and then they get thrown into boot camp.
Not like
right.
That. No, it's like you have to go through an application process similar to like it could be when you're applying for a visa from anywhere in the world. for whatever reason, you can like on there, it can be a part where it's like, would you be, or are you like, is your visa for military service? Like you could sign up. Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like you could sign up for a visa for the purpose of coming over, pathway to citizenship, serving this country. But there are stipulations like having to renounce any other citizenship, so that you would only be a citizen of the United States. And like some level of a very strict form of punishment if there was any kind of insubordination or treasonous behavior.
I can see where that, I mean, I can see how you're thinking that. I have less trust in the government than you do. Obviously, I don't think you want that to be a headline. Kevin trusts the government.
I'm being clear here.
Trusts the government.
I want to be abundantly clear. All of this is under the qualification of if I trusted the government more. I don't. But like in a perfect world, like
Kevin
if I was,
Bears trusts the government. That's what the headline is going to read.
If I was fascist dictator of the United States, then that's how I would do it, because I would have control over it.
I do agree with you about the declining rates of enrollment in the military. And I think it's because we've gotten so soft, all these woke policies, right? Blah, blah, blah. We could talk about that for a long time. I think the solution, though, to be honest, I think the solution is guys like David Goggins or Gary Brecka or Dana White or some of these other, like Joe Rogan's, some of these studs that are talking about health, that are talking about fitness, because there was an interview I saw, I think it was 5 years ago, and it stuck with me, that they are having such a hard time getting people into some of these like specialized groups, like the Marines, right? And so they're actually having to like lower the standards. And I saw that this is like in 2018. I saw that I was like, lower the standards. What do you mean lower the standards? No, you got to make them you got to keep them there or make them higher. Just because you're not getting people in, because like if we lower the standards, that means that being a Marine isn't like as scary to other countries as it could be. So, yeah. But my point is, I think that these guys who are talking about fitness, who are talking about health, are like not infiltrating. What's the right word? Getting into the minds of these young men who potentially could join the military. And I think that like right now, the military sucks. Right, because of all this like DEI stuff, like it just does. Like,
well, there's that, they're not even focusing on their target demographic. Like, this is just a marketing thing. So if you look at the current demographics of the military, it's like people that look and act like me are the majority of the military. The majority of our military, like in the 70s, if not early 80s%, it's mid 20s, early to mid 20s, straight white men. But based on, if you watch the commercials they put out, for the most part, oh man, well, Destiny is a 28-year-old Black woman who is a first-generation college student and the daughter of two moms. And she joined the military, and she's like also like a 5'1", like 115-pound girl. Like, probably could still kick my ass, I'm not gonna lie, but we're talking about the how it looks to other countries. And if the focus of your advertising,
that's the headline right now.
And if your focus of it is like, I started from a young age fighting for queer rights, and now I fight in the United States military, that would not motivate anybody who looks or acts like me.
So what you're saying is the military has a marketing problem because they're trying to market to the woke moms.
Kind of, yeah. They're
like the woke liberal suburban moms.
Oh, yeah, but I don't even think it's them that they're trying to market to. I think they're trying, for a while, they were trying to market to Congress. Because when it seemed like this is what Congress, a Democrat-controlled Congress, was wanting, the military wants more money. And so, yeah, they'll put in DEI shit. They'll put in unqualified people because of their identity. They'll do all that because it'll mean that we'll get more money from Congress. And so I think that's really what it was. I think they have a marketing issue, and it's kind of irreparable now. And so now you have an entire generation of people that look and act like me and think that don't want to join the military because of the marketing that they did to get more money.
So we have to have like mama make no mga make the military great again. Mga. I think that should be Trump's new slogan.
Well, yeah, but I think we need to we got to work on the incentives for it because they've also had a branding issue for years. And I know this is a lot off topic, but I think it's worth talking about. They've had a branding issue for years where it was kind of seen that if you go into the military, you must have had no other option. Like that's the way that it kind of got branded since like post Vietnam for the most part. Like prior to that, it was everyone joined the military. It was kind of like if you think about the people from World War II. Like it's kind of weird now, not weird, but it's less common to meet somebody our age or around our age century that's like, oh, I'm in the military. Because one, enrollment has been declining, but it's also because Vietnam, especially after that draft, it was not looked as positively to go into the military.
But I don't necessarily live in like a military like city, right? Like if I went down to Tacoma, I'd meet a lot more of those people, or if I moved up to Everett, right? Because I'm up in the Seattle area.
You're right, but think about like from World War II, everyone went to war in World War II. Everyone's like, you ask people about like, oh yeah, my great grandfather was in World War II. Like everyone, like, a lot more. Like it was just kind of custom, and so that's why I even think about the solution instead of just maybe. I mean, I'm still not against a small portion of it. Looking at people applying to be a part of our military from other countries if they really want to pledge their allegiance to America. Maybe I guess that's almost too much trust in people, but I digress. I think it would be interesting if we were to implement something where there was a certain level of mandatory service. I think we're at that point.
I tend to agree with you on the mandatory service. I don't agree with you on the illegal immigrants getting into the military whatsoever. My thought process is, and it's very rudimentary, but it makes a lot of sense. If they're coming into this country illegally and breaking the first law by stepping onto our soil, what's from stopping them from doing something else?
Well, that's again why I'm saying I think I'm a lot more open to the idea of people applying for it from a visa, not as much current illegal immigrants. I mean, legal, like making a legal pathway to citizenship, not for people that are currently here illegally, but for people globally that are in different countries that want to come to America, want to do it the right way, don't want to break our laws. And then they could go through, because then what that would do is it would also deter, or it could deter people that might be thinking about coming over illegally and saying, here's an option I have. So that I can come over legally. It could, and that's how you could find good people. Maybe it's just too much trust that there are good people out there. But that's kind of the way that I see that one. But in terms of the mandatory military service, I go back and forth because I don't want the government to be able to force anybody to do anything. Like for the most part, obviously there's like, there's things that they should stop people from doing, like murdering or doing hard drugs. But I do get conflicted with it. I lean more towards that though. I think that there could be some level of and it should, but we as conservatives, we can't just like come out and be like, oh no, everybody needs to serve 4 years in the military. And that's exactly how it should be. It's going to be a more convoluted discussion than that. Like, what does that service look like? Because obviously not everyone who joins the military, nor if we make it mandatory, can everybody do like hand to hand or even just ground combat. Like you'd have people that they would need to, like if you have somebody in a wheelchair who's like a paraplegic, there are definitely desk jobs or something that they can do that doesn't, that allows for their disability in the military, you know?
So, but then there's a whole bunch of like tax implications, right? Because if we forced everybody to serve in the military, they'd have to raise taxes.
Not necessarily.
Yes, 1,000%. What percentage of kids like in their 20s serve in the military right now?
You wouldn't have to raise, because raising taxes, I don't know what that percentage is. It's definitely, right. I mean, obviously it would increase the amount of people in the military, but if you cut spending from other areas, if you cut spending from other areas, and then put it that I'm sure, I mean, because it would likely solve certain problems that are currently caused. I mean, if we cut most of Social Security and everything and and cut the amount that we're spending on welfare for those that are turning 18 and don't have a job, aren't going to college, nothing. If we cut a lot of those social services and made it so that those would then be payments for those that are working in the military, taxes would remain the same. And I don't know if it would equal out perfectly.
I mean, I think you might be thinking in like an idealistic world, but the way that these laws work is that it'll be an infinite amount of increase in taxes. Because even with like gay marriage, they increase taxes, right? So it's just like a freaking thing. Oh, you're allowed to do it now, but also you're going to pay more in taxes, right? It's like the climate change thing. Oh, we're like we'll reduce this, but you're going to have to pay more in taxes. Right.
Yeah, I think it would just come with a responsible legislature, because there are ways. The thing is that when it comes to public policy, there are two ways to get more money, or at least there are two ways to fund a project. You either raise taxes, which is the simple way, because you just take more money from people and allocate it towards those things, or you cut spending somewhere else and use that money here. And so I just think our government too often goes with the easy to see solution of just raise taxes and steal it from everybody else. I froze, I think, and I'm sorry about that.
Oh no, you're golden. You just are
really?
Pondering. You're just looking up, pondering, saying, what is this? What is this life I'm living? What? how do we fix this? So let's segue into some other irresponsible spending here, because this other story that we have is absolutely insane. It is the RNC, and they are spending out of control. Let's look up what Benny Johnson has uncovered, because it is unbelievable. Let me read this. This is from Benny Johnson and a whole bunch of other journalists digging this up, and I'm really glad they're digging this up right now versus in a couple years, because I mean, this is unbelievable. So Ronna McDaniel's RNC seeks a new line of credit to help them climb out of the money hole. By the way, what they're doing is they're collateralizing their office in DC, which a lot of people are asking why they have an office building in DC. It's like literally right next to the Capitol building. It's on prime real estate. Like if they don't need it. They don't need it there. They need it in like a swing state, right? They need to put offices in these swing states. Anyway, in the last 5 years, the RNC spent $3.1 million on private jet services, $1.3 million on limousine and chauffeur services, $17.1 million on donor mementos. So like gifts after you donate, $750,000 on floral arrangements, $80,000 in alcohol-related expenditures. They spent $80,000 on getting people drunk, $400,000 on luxury entertainment, and then here are some of the expenses just from the 2020 election cycle.
Gentry, I'm going to reset my camera and stuff real quick. Keep introducing the story. I will be right back. Okay.
So the RNC is being unbelievably irresponsible with the money that people are giving them. And it's a crime. I really think it's a crime, because they're LARPing as people who are trying to help us. They really are. It's just unbelievably frustrating. Let me reset the screen here. It's unbelievably, it makes me really frustrated. The DNC is not spending money like this. I want to just make that perfectly clear. The DNC is not spending money like this at all.
Perfect. I am back, everybody. I'm sorry. My computer is only.
So what's sorry, I lost my train of thought. The DNC is not spending money like this. They're not spending millions of dollars on private travel. They're not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on flowers or alcohol-related expenditures. What they're doing is they're spending a ton of money on field organizers. They're spending a ton of money on ballot chasers. They're spending a ton of money on voter registration. They're spending a ton of money on data refinement. So all the data that they have for all the voters of low propensity voters, all this kind of stuff. So they're actually doing the work of a political party. And the RNC, they're also the DNC is also spending a lot of money through political PACs and stuff like that on influencers, right? We've all seen Harry Stinson or whatever the guy's name is, Harry Simpson, right? He's a big old simp for Joe Biden, and he's relatively effective with keeping people fired up about the Democrats and against Donald Trump, and he's getting a ton of a ton of reach, a ton of money, and the RNC isn't deploying any kind of influencer marketing, anything like that. They're being unbelievably irresponsible.
Yeah, they are. And here's the thing is that this is why we've been telling people, especially since 2022, do not donate to the Republican Party. Donate to specific candidates or political action committees. Like, that's who you donate to. Mm-hmm. Because the Republican Party and Ronna McDaniel, and this is what really pissed me off too, is, I mean, we had the whole re-election attempt to get Harmeet Dillon into heading up the RNC, but enough people had been brainwashed into believing that Ronna McDaniel was doing a good enough job. I'm sorry, but if you look at the last few election cycles, you look at basically 2018, Republican lost, 2020, Republican lost, 2022, Republican lost, especially in 2022 when that was expected to be a red wave.
Right.
Every verifiable projection was that should be a red wave.
It could have been a red wave.
It should have been.
It could have been.
But when you have mismanagement, and look, and she'll blame Trump, she'll blame abortion and everything like that. Those might have had some level of an effect, but I guarantee you, had we put spending behind the right people and strategically ran the party, we wouldn't have snatched defeat from the jaws of victory like we basically have in my adult life.
Yeah, there's a really good comment I pinned right here. The RNC is using retarded girl math and having parties, which is essentially what they're doing. No, but you're 100% right. 2022, it could have been a red wave, but the RNC was too busy spending money on private jets and floral arrangements and alcohol instead of on ballot chasing initiatives.
Yeah.
And I actually know, I don't know this actually, but I feel it in my heart that there are more of us than there are of them, but they need to be reminded to go vote, which is not a bad thing. That's why we have these infrastructures available or that need to be funded. The RNC is dropping the ball. There's a ton of really, really good people that are doing amazing work. Turning Point Action is one of them. And I got to give them a shout out because Tyler Boyer and Austin Smith, they are heading up this 501c4, and they're essentially
Brett Galashevsky. I don't know if you've met him. He's been in Turning Point Action since like day one, and he used to be a ground field worker. He's been working his way up. I have a lot of respect for Brett. He's a great friend too, and so that's another one I want to give a shout out to.
So Brett, Austin, and Tyler, they're hiring tons of field organizers in these specific battleground states. In fact, I think that they're even holding the Turning Point Action in Michigan this year, right? Which is one of those, which is a brilliant idea. Like, don't have it in Florida because that's already a red state. Like, figure out a battleground state to get that in. Scott Pressler, I'm following him on Instagram and Twitter. He's doing a fantastic job going and registering people at churches, at gun shows, Bass Pro Shop, and he's really moving the needle. And what people need to realize is that it's not just like cast a really wide net and hope that it works. What they're doing, and specifically these organizations, Scott Pressler, Turning Point Action, there's a few others, but what they're specifically doing is drilling down into the data, like on a precinct level, like address by address, and saying, this person has voted in the past, this person has, might vote Republican, so let's go hit them. This person hasn't voted in the last couple of elections, let's go hit them. Right. And so they're being very strategic and very surgical with their approach to ballot chasing. And it's going to make the difference. And I wish that the RNC would have spent money on that instead of private travel.
Yeah, anything like that. And so that's why there have become these like private sector solutions to the issues that the party is themselves are not solving. And you talk a little bit about like what or like these there are more of us than there might be. I don't know the numbers, but like I'd like to believe that as well. The biggest thing is reminding people or answering the question to people of like there's so many people where I'll hear my vote doesn't matter. And the problem, in my opinion, is the problem is you have people on our side that will respond and be like, "Of course your vote matters. It does." But that doesn't really answer the root of the question, which is and the pain point, which is why would if my vote matters, how or why? And the truth of the matter, as I would tell anybody, is you're right. You as an individual, you singular person, in terms of a presidential election, your singular vote likely doesn't really matter that much. But if you and him and her and him and her and him and her and everyone else in your neighborhood, in your city, thought the same thing, then your one vote would matter.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of theirs does too when it's combined.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how you have to, like, that's the thing is you're right. Your singular one vote doesn't really, but if you don't, and everybody else has that same mentality, then we're going to lose and we're going to continue to lose.
Well, here's where I think the hope has been sucked out of the Republican Party is that there is this idea that our vote doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side, with Democrats, they know that their vote matters. And so they go out and vote in droves.
And that's why they do it 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
No, but seriously, like
hell, it matters so much to them. They're in the grave and somehow they're still voting.
Oh my gosh. So, and this is like the really frustrating thing about all this talk about election fraud and, changing the votes, all this kind of stuff. The conservatives, like our vote doesn't even matter because they're just going to change the numbers in the system. Right. But I keep trying to tell people, and I'm really glad that Charlie's doing this too, that a bunch of other people are doing this too, like saying we have to still act like it does matter. And here's why. Like, we're not just pretending that, there's not election fraud, right? Now, if you want to go through like the legal route, potentially there isn't any because there hasn't actually been heard in court, right? I want to preface that. But it's harder for Democrats to cheat if we come out in droves. It's so much harder because they can't just like infinitely print votes. They can't just infinitely change numbers in the computer because then it becomes really obvious that there's a huge disparity in voter turnout versus what's actually on the ballot.
Absolutely.
Right. And so we have to act like it does matter. And every single vote counts. I'm telling you, every single vote counts. You'd be unbelievably surprised at how many people do not vote in the US. I think there was 150 million people who voted in the 2024 election.
Yeah.
That leaves 150 million people who didn't vote. Can you imagine if we got a ton of those people? It's more, but I just not everyone's voting.
You're absolutely right. And I guess that's because then you'll also often have politicos that will answer that, and they'll, from kind of a pretentious standpoint, saying like, well, that's just a reflection in a sad state of society. And I'm like, yeah, but if you keep looking at it at that as it's just a sad state of society, which it might be, but if that's your only outlook on it, then you're not seeking any kind of a solution. Like, wouldn't you want better from your America? Wouldn't you want better from the system we currently have? Wouldn't you want people to exercise their right and also to know how the right actually works? Here's the thing. I don't think Democrats want more people to vote. I don't think their thing is, I don't think they'll always try to masquerade and say voter ID is racist. We want as many people to vote as possible. Republicans are the ones that don't want people to vote. I don't agree with that. I mean, when we have 50% of the country not voting, if not more, I would believe that Democrats don't want people to vote because they know that the rest of those people probably would vote against them. I mean, if they really thought that all those people that weren't voting would vote for them, then they wouldn't be so ardent on illegal immigrants coming into this country. They wouldn't be so for. If they thought that they could get those people to vote and it would benefit them, they would.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, because they try to get every single person, every single area, territory that they know would benefit them, they try to get them to vote. Felons, they get in terms of presidential elections, they try to give DC statehood because they know if DC had statehood, it would add more seats for them in the Senate. Puerto Rico, like they know that they could swing the system with all these different ones. If they really thought the 150 million people, if they really thought that getting those people to vote would help them, I guarantee you that would be easier and an easier sell for them than having an open border.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know exactly how it all shakes out, but I know that Republicans are doing a poor job and Democrats are like 3 steps ahead.
So I don't actually think Democrats are 3 steps ahead as far as like policy goes, definitely in the infrastructure. But to be honest, Joe Biden just going up and speaking is one of Trump's greatest campaign tools. Seriously. So 2020, everyone voted against Trump, right? People didn't really like Biden. And fewer people like Biden today, but a lot of people were voting against Trump. 2024, I think that a lot of people are voting against Biden because it's gotten so bad. The world is in disarray. Gas prices are through the roof. The economy's like inflation is out the window, right? It's so much harder to live now. The sentiment that I'm seeing online is that people are saying, hey, I don't really like Trump, but we had money. We were able to live under Trump. And they're starting to see that these social issues that we keep kind of fighting about aren't as big as a thing. I think 2024 is going to have a lot of people voting against Biden. Now, the wrench that got thrown in there was RFK, right? And so I think people are going to try to see like, well, maybe I'll throw a vote to RFK, blah, blah, blah. The only stance that I think that he's really, really good on, and I've said this a lot, but I'll say it again because it's worth repeating. The only stance that he's really, really good on is the COVID stance.
Yep.
Right. That's it. In every other respect, he is a socialist Democrat. Yeah, and people are going to try to paint him as a.
Well, I'll give you COVID, and I don't think. Hey, I'm not going to disagree with everything, but I do want to give him credit on free speech too. He does seem like he's a more free speech individual. At least, I mean, I don't think you could not be. When he's saying something when it comes to the COVID stuff going against the grain. Now, I'll agree with you on everything else. I just think that he's more free speech than the majority of the progressive left socialists that we see.
But people are trying to paint him as a moderate, and he wants to take away guns. He wants 15-minute cities. He's a climate alarmist. Like his I think you even told me this. His sister is on the board of a climate like a climate activism thing. And so those people that went and sprayed soup on the Mona Lisa, like she funded that. She funds all those people who super glue themselves to the ground. Like it's like he's a climate alarmist. He's going to raise taxes. So there's like people are going to vote against Biden. I do not doubt that. But do
you think that RFK will pull more from Biden or Trump?
I think he'll pull more from Trump, to be honest.
Really?
And that's what the polls are saying.
Actually, at least the polls I've seen are showing differently. It's that because I saw ones, and maybe they're a little outdated now, but it was like 2-3 months ago. I saw ones where it was in a Trump Biden head to head. If it was an unknown independent, the unknown independent would pull about 10 to 11% of the vote. If it was RFK, it would be about 14% of the vote is what he would pull. And it was 3% it was 2% from Biden, 1% from Trump in the difference. And so from what I saw is RFK would pull more from Biden, but it was within a margin of error to where it could be a toss up.
Interesting. But yeah,
that's what I was seeing. But I agree with you on everything about RFK. I think that there's a lot of people on the right that see him as if he's like great just because he says something that they agree with. But that's a problem. Is like, look, Fetterman has been saying a lot of things I agree with when it comes to some of the Israel stuff recently. Doesn't mean I love the guy.
Exactly.
It just means to be a good Democrat, you have to have brain damage. So,
Yeah.
like, that's the way I see it. It's like you can recognize that somebody does something good once, but a broken clock is still right twice a day.
So, talking about RFK, I'm glad I brought this up because he has had a little bit of controversy recently. Have you seen the TikTok comment?
I haven't seen the TikTok comment.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna pull this
it
up.
up. Let's see it.
TikTok.
This
All
will
right.
be good, I'm sure. Gosh.
Okay, so let me go to images here and see if I can find the TikTok comment because RFK seems to be okay. Here we go. Here it is. I'm pulling it up. Bear with me, everybody. Stay tuned. Share this with people. If you haven't heard about this, this is kind of a fun little story. And all right, so here's what we're looking at here. Can you see the screen?
I can't.
Okay.
I think you got to bring it on.
All right. Let me do this here then.
There we go. Did he comment about like some girl with a booty or something?
Yeah, so he was commenting on like thirst traps online. And here's what he's claiming, okay? He is claiming that he took over an account because it had over 1,000 followers, and you have to be able to go live to announce your campaign, right? And so he's like, when I first started, we couldn't go live, so we had to like take someone else's TikTok account and all this kind of stuff. I don't necessarily believe that, because what are you going to do? Announce to the world that you're going to run for president for 1,500 followers? Like that like in my mind, it doesn't make sense. Just like, don't announce on TikTok. Post a video on a brand new TikTok account, talk to TikTok and say, hey, like I'm running, please verify me. And let's get this thing going.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. I can see what you're saying. But I guarantee, I mean, I'm not in disbelief that this could happen, because if you notice, so many political campaigns, especially underfunded ones. So if you look at like a lot of even congressional campaigns that are in districts that aren't very competitive, like it's pretty clear a Democrat or a Republican will win. The opposition that is likely to lose, their social media strategies are very, very poor. And look, by no means am I an expert in all things social media, but I'd say I have more experience than a lot of people that are in roles regarding social media, even. And like you even know more than I do. But the people that are really good at social media, the people that know that, hey, if you just post a video with the name RFK or Robert F. Kennedy, that in and of itself will do really well, and you could organically grow, and you don't need to pay for a 1,000 or 1,500 account. You don't need to do anything like that. You don't have people that are that good, because anybody who actually knows that kind of stuff has a decent amount of followers on their own. And like, they don't actually need to be working, consulting, and doing everything for your campaign.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I like, the thing is I could see where you're not inclined to believe him. I'm not really either. But I also don't see, but I could see a route in which that actually was a real mistake, because he probably had dumb people on his campaign that thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
As well as, I also don't see, would it be like, because I don't believe that it would be him on the TikTok, like that he'd be like scrolling through, just like, oh, look at that booty, like, yeah. Like, I don't see it. I don't see it as him being one. I would see it more as like maybe an intern that was supposed to be handling some of the social media. Didn't realize that they were logged in on that account. And
but
so
here's the thing.
Personal account, they would usually do crap like that.
It did predate his announcement for president.
Okay.
And so the account was being run by someone else.
Yeah.
Great.
So,
It could have
so
been
no
him.
matter
It
what,
could
no. Huh?
It could have been him, like, just having just like an anonymous TikTok account,
That's true. That's
right?
true. Could have been
So could have been that. I
getting
don't know.
down and dirty. RFK getting down and dirty.
I mean, he does have a pretty interesting past when it does come to relationships.
Yeah, I need to look into that a little bit more. I just know about JFK's fascinating history
Yeah.
with Marilyn.
Yeah. There was a lot of these presidents, man, are just not good people as far as relationships go. Policy wise, they're probably amazing, but like philanderers and douchebags and
Absolutely. I think RFK is an interesting candidate. I think he will probably poll more than he usually does.
Yeah.
And I even saw there was a thing I saw about him, and I know this isn't what we were going to take it to necessarily, but I saw a thing about him that said he was open to running as a libertarian, like if the libertarians invited him.
So he is actually trying to do that on the ticket.
Yeah. And so the thing that I think is interesting about that is I think it would be both great and awful for libertarians. Like, I think it would be great because it would get their name out there a lot more. Like, a lot more people would probably consider vote. Like, a lot of moderates, people that don't like Joe Biden but also don't like Trump, would consider because of the way that Kennedy has framed himself. Not that he's moderate in and of himself. And if anything, I don't even believe that he's very libertarian. I think he just hits more of a libertarian viewpoint on the vaccine idea. But I think it would be great because then you'd have people that are more open to the third party idea, but it would also be awful because then you would kind of be abandoning the meaning of being a libertarian to bring those people over, you know?
So do you think that RFK thinks that he can win?
No.
So
I think there's probably a financial incentive. I think he's also looking probably to get a position somewhere from someone. And I think he knew that running as a Democrat wouldn't allow. I think running as an independent and gaining a popularity through that would kind of like, you know how people play both sides in certain situations to try to like never get anybody on their bad side so that they can end up on top. I think that's what he's trying to do. Is he's like I'm not going to run as a Democrat because then that like looks as if I'm coming after Joe Biden directly, only Joe Biden. And he also knows that usually anybody in politics knows that if you challenge an incumbent president, your name is only going to be heard in one news headline as like, oh my God, Marianne Williamson is running for president. And then you haven't heard anything about her campaign for the rest of it. You haven't heard anything about it. And he knew that that's what would happen. But if he runs as an independent and he comes out with one crazy stance, or what, not crazy, but like a stance that sounds crazy to everybody, like, oh my God, it's a Democrat that's not forcing the vaccine down everybody's throat.
Right.
Then he'll garner media attention. And he's running as an independent. He's not threatening Trump. And we see what happens if you threaten, like you're DeSanctimonious. You're bird brain Haley. You're fat ass Chris Christie. Whatever. You get torn down. And so he's playing it where it's like, okay, if Joe Biden wins, then maybe if I garner enough popularity, he'll see as me as advantageous to bring somewhere along in his coattails. Same thing with Trump. I'm running as an independent. If Trump wins, I could have something in there. And so I don't know how long he'll stay in, if he'll stay in at the very end, but I guarantee you he will, if he does drop out, which I think he probably will. If he doesn't get a party to back him, like if he's not behind as a libertarian or something similar, then he'll drop out and his endorsement will be almost as important as an endorsement from Taylor Swift.
Oh, interesting. But when would he drop out? Because he doesn't really have to like primary, right?
So like I think it would be around the times of when's the DNC? Isn't the DNC over the summer?
Yeah, so the DNC I'm pretty sure is in May.
Probably be around then.
Yeah.
I'd say May, June-ish, maybe July.
Yeah.
I'd say he'd keep going, see how much he could build, and then polls start getting more solid around that time. And so he could really, it will definitely be after both the nomination processes are set.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean,
I think he's playing really smart politics, though. I think he's smart enough. And he's obviously been in the realm for a long time. I think he's playing really smart politics.
I mean, maybe he's playing it smart, but like, why would you run if you know you're not going to win?
Why would you run if you're not going to win? Financial incentive, your name gets out there. I mean, think about it. Could you tell me anything about RFK Jr. before he started running for president?
No.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That in and of itself is a reason to run for president. Hell, what about Doug Burgum? Did you even know who that man was?
I don't know who that is.
You still don't? He was North Dakota governor.
Okay. Yeah.
But the point is the fact I didn't even know who he was until he ran for president.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe he's not doing as good of a job as RFK, but he got his name out there. At a minimum, that's how it is, because if you run for president, if you are of a position to be able to run for president, it is a fascinating tool to get your leg up in politics. Because let's say you're the governor, and let's say you're a governor of a state, like Doug Burgum. I don't know if this is why he did it. I don't know enough about him, but let's say you're Doug Burgum. You're governor of North Dakota, and you know that in 2 years you hit the end of your second term as governor. And so you know that you're going to be out, that you've hit your term limit. And so you need something else. Well, you know that you probably don't have the ability to actually win the presidency, but you think that you either could work really well in the actual winner's cabinet, or you know that if you get your name recognition and if you show yourself well on the national stage, you could run for Senate or some other statewide office, or probably not Congress. That's kind of a step down, but Senate is kind of a sidestep from governor, because they're both statewide offices that hold a significant level of power.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how you do it. You use it as a strategy. It's like, okay, I can get my name up there so I can maybe get a cabinet position because I know I'm terming out, or I'm going to advance myself in some way, or at least sidestep into the Senate. So then I can keep raising my name recognition. So then I can run again in 2028 and maybe actually have a shot at the nomination.
Interesting.
There are a lot of reasons to run for president even if you know for a fact you're not going to win.
So maybe I'll run for president when I turn 35.
Do it. Why not?
Maybe I'll do it.
Think about, like, Vivek is a great example.
Yeah.
No one had heard of Vivek at all.
I had, actually. I was a Vivek fan, like 2020.
The vast majority of people, because he wrote like Unwoke Inc. or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And so but nobody had ever even thought of him. Even if you had heard of him, he was not somebody you really thought, because I think I had heard his name before prior to running for president, but you didn't really think of him as a politician or somebody running for office. He was at best a mid-tier commentator. And then all of a sudden he runs for president, and now he is basically a household name and a short list of people, on people's short list for who they think should run for president in like 28 and 32. So that is a person who knew that his chances of winning were slim, but took every opportunity to basically play the system so well. This is a guy with zero political experience, does not have the wealth and recognition amassed by Trump prior to getting into politics. And he gets in, and now is somebody that's he could have a pretty high up cabinet position.
Oh, 100%.
He could be somebody pretty important in Trump's cabinet, or he could be a presidential contender in 28, in a pretty with a sizable lead starting off. That is somebody who runs for president. That's why you run for president if you don't think you're going to win. There's financial incentives as well. You could honestly just help with book sales, which gets you more money.
It's true.
Like there's, it could also be a personal thing. Like that's kind of what I think Chris Christie was in it for. I think to an extent, I think Chris Christie was in it for a personal thing to try to change his legacy, or at least advance some part of his legacy. I think that Mike Pence was trying to change the world, the country's view on him, because a lot of people hated him. And I'm not the biggest Mike Pence fan, but I do think he gets a lot of undeserved hate. And so that's, I think there's a lot of different reasons to run. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I wouldn't run if I didn't think I could win. That's my whole thing. Like I try to calculate stuff so that if I do it, I win or succeed in some way. But I see what you're saying about setting yourself up for future endeavors, because that really makes sense. That really does make sense.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I see that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of reasons.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we've been going for an hour. I think it's time to sign off. If you've watched this far, please go follow Speechless with Kev on YouTube, Instagram. Please go follow him on Instagram, because we're trying to get that account just popping off.
Yep.
Follow Breakaway_USA, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, or X, Rumble. We're on all the platforms. We're trying to build out this thing to be a huge behemoth, a thing that moves the needle. And also follow me, Gentry Jeevers.
Yeah.
Kev, this was fantastic. This is the weekend update with Gentry and Kevin. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. See you guys later.